Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast, where we answer your sales distress calls. I'm Liz Heiman, and each week I'm joined by your crew of seasoned sales experts who have navigated these waters and come out victorious. So if you're ready to turn your sales distress into sales success, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic.
Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm Liz Heiman, and I'm here with your Sales SOS podcast crew, Brynne Tillman, Chris Bowen, Mike Simmons, and Renee Bigelow. And I have to apologize because I have terrible allergies. So my voice sounds really awful right now. So please bear with me. I will let your crew talk more than I do. I promise.
It's a sexy voice.
I hope not. So we are talking about selling in uncertain times because here we are in the middle of uncertain times again, right? Which I think is sort of the nature of the market. We do really well and then things go crazy in the world, and then we do really well and then things go crazy. So in this time right now, or any time when things are uncertain and sales aren't easy, we tend to get really frustrated with our sales team. But our sales teams need the skills to be successful. And it's our job to make sure that they have the skills to be successful. So if they're floundering, then take a step back and let's look at where they're missing the skills. And the skill that we want to talk about right now is asking good questions. And I think this is incredibly powerful because there are all kinds of things that we do that are not fun for our clients when it comes to asking questions. And Renee and Mike, in our last episode, we're starting to talk about this, and I'm going to have them jump back in. And Mike, I want to remind you, you and I were talking about BANT, and I'm pretty sure it was you who said to me, have you ever been BANTed? And how did you like it? Was it you that said that to me?
Oh, I probably did say it, but I'd heard it from somebody else in the same thing like this. Yes, I've said that before, and other people have said it. I don't know.
And I think I've heard Daryl Krell say
any
it.
of those things.
Me.
And Britt. Okay, so we are going to talk about that for sure. So let's talk about, we're going to talk about how to ask good questions, but we're going to start by talking about how not to ask good questions. What are the things that people are doing that really just don't work? And Renee gave us an example, and then Mike gave us an example. So Renee, start on what you were talking about. If you're going to ask questions.
Yeah. So I mean, marketing is one of the biggest buyers of a lot of things in companies right now. Marketing's probably has the most tech outside of IT in almost any company. There's a huge MarTech solution. We do trade show things. We buy things that we give away, or, like there's a lot of selling to marketing. And I will tell you, I really don't believe this is just me, but I'm going to tell on myself a little bit here and say, if you start a conversation with me, like first time we're talking, and you come in with, so tell me about your business, it is the equivalent of taking me on a first date and saying, so do you want to have kids? Like, what is your thoughts on marriage and kids? And nothing will throw my guard up more, right, than you saying that and me being like offended that you expect me to spill all of my secrets to you and you haven't even like introduced yourself, essentially, right? And I think another version of that, which your ask, which we should probably explain again here, your ask framework is much more elegant. But while I love the 5 whys that Toyota uses, I think Salesforce refers to it as 5 levels of questions instead of the 5 whys. Trying to get to the root cause. What is the root pain? Like if I really solve what the source of your pain is, then you're obviously going to buy from me. It's a very invasive way of questioning. It's one thing for me to do that with my team and solve a problem internal. And it's another for somebody, again, like, maybe on the second date or something, to be like, well, if that doesn't do that, then why does this happen? And why does that? Like, that's putting me back to my heels as a buyer. So those are the 2 that I find repeatedly drive me crazy.
Okay, so Renee, hang on a second. So the first is, do your homework before you pick up the phone, and don't expect me to carry the work of the conversation, and don't ask me questions you haven't earned the right to ask. And the second is, you don't get to ask me, well, why? Well, why? Well, why? In hopes of getting to my deepest, darkest secrets. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to share with you what I'm comfortable sharing with you. Don't interrogate me. You haven't earned the right to interrogate me. In fact, you never have the right to interrogate me. Okay, Mike. Ready, set, go.
I don't agree with Renee. And here's why. And I appreciate Renee. I appreciate the perspective. I appreciate all of that stuff. It's we have gotten ourselves into a situation where we have beaten curiosity out of people by pushing back on the questions that are asked. And unfortunately, what ends up happening, if you think about it, like a 2-year-old around the house, anybody ever have a 2-year-old around their house? What do they like to ask?
Why?
Why? What do they like to ask after you share?
Why?
And then what do they ask after that?
Why?
Right. It just keeps going. But so we ask these questions. Why? Because for most of us, there's a genuine level of curiosity in getting a way to understand. Now, at the same time, I can get that piece of information that I want to get out without asking a why question. I can ask a how question or a what question or a when question. I can share a little bit of context and I can change things a little bit. So when you watch people in that environment, watch for their nonverbal. Do they lean back? Do they lean in? Do they start looking at other pieces? Do they dig their heels in? Whatever the thing is, and ask questions in the context of what's important to the customer and how they like to communicate, how they want to communicate. And those pieces, because they're the ones who have insight, have information inside their head, between their ears, that is private information. It is not public information. There is still public information that's out there. And if you go to a conversation without looking at that public information first, you're not doing your job. You're not prepared. You've not planned properly. And you put yourself into a situation where you're going to not handle that conversation very well. You will have zero credibility. It's still okay to ask the questions why. Like, how are you measured? What's important to you? What are you stressed about? Like, and here's the deal. If someone doesn't want to answer that question, they're probably not the right person to be talking to because they don't have the kind of thing that you might be able to solve for. So use your 2 eyes, your 2 ears to accept signals in when you're communicating, and your 1 mouth to ask those questions in context. So it's not that the why question is a bad question. It does create defensiveness. It does, like, why'd you do it that way? Or what were you thinking? Like, all of those are things that sound, well, what happened right before that? God, that's kind of sucks. How'd that happen? What would you have done different? Like, all of these things, these are simple questions that we can ask that will get what's happening in this conversation to happen in your customer conversations. People will start nodding. People will start engaging. People will start reacting in different ways. It's when someone gets a script that says, these are the 20 questions to business fit that you need to go in there and ask to go through and qualify, whatever. That's where things fall apart, because what you've done is you've created a bunch of machines that aren't thinking in the way they go about it. So that's why I disagree with Renee's on the way that piece was presented, because I think you can do those things and do it with empathy and do it with sincerity and do it with curiosity and do it with a way where you can lead your customers forward. Because a lot of times people don't know why they've got a headache, even when they've got a nail sticking through the side of their head.
Go ahead, Brynne.
So I love both of what Renee and Mike said, even if they are not 100% aligned. I think they're great. But a couple things I want to share. Number one, I tell my clients, never, ever, ever, ever ask a question you could have learned from their LinkedIn profile. Ever. If I get on a call with someone who's trying to sell me and they go, so where are you sitting? Like, you don't know? Now, if they get on and say, hey, I see you're in the greater New York area, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, great, right? Because they took that information. And with AI today, you can, before any call, you can upload, you can put in a link to a LinkedIn profile and the link to their website, and you can get 90% of what you need that's public. That will lead to the conversation. So that's where you start to earn the right because you did your homework. You're prepared. If you don't do pre-call planning, especially with the ability to drop anything into AI in 30 seconds, get it all, really, you're going to get wiped out by the people that do. Okay. Number 2, don't bant me. Budget, authority, need, timing, right? Bant. People have been taught bant, but what does bant mean? If I come to a sales conversation and I say, so Mike, what's your budget for this? For what? So is there anyone other than yourself that will be involved in this decision? What decision? Do you have a current need? Like, all of those questions are what I need to make a sale, not what I need to solve his problem. So Bant is so self-absorbed, and it's so frustrating. I was in a new company, did not stay there long, years ago, and I was in the ride along with the leader of the company, the leader of the sales team, and she banted. We were in Marisource, Bergen. I landed the appointment as a newbie, but I didn't know enough to run that appointment yet. So I had to bring my boss's boss to that appointment, and she banted, and we were kicked out in 7 minutes. When you ask someone, what is your budget, and you have not determined anything about what they need, that's it's insane. Because it's all about what we want to hear to make the sale. It has nothing to do with what they need. And so the bottom line in all of this, all of the questions need to lead to solving their problem before they lead to how do I charge them to solve the problem.
Start with understanding their problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that we don't need to qualify, because we do need to qualify, and we need to qualify people out so we're not wasting time. But we don't just start with BANT questions. We don't just start by deciding whether or not you're willing to spend another minute with them based on whether or not they are clear about what they're buying, when they're buying, and how much they're spending. Like, that's not naturally how people make buying decisions. And what I will tell you is if they can answer those questions right off the top of their head, somebody's already figured out what they're buying, how they're buying it, and they've sent somebody out to go talk to multiple companies. So they're pretty far down their sales process that they have their budget clearly defined and the project clearly defined. So anyway, Mike, what do you got for us? You just cleared. Mike, you didn't see it if you weren't with us on LinkedIn Live or, watching the video. Mike just cleaned off the whiteboard. He's ready to go. What you got for us?
So
Clean whiteboard behind Mike.
The first thing, and this is a problem-solving framework that I've got out in the marketplace. I've shared a number of different places. It looks like a hexagon, and it's the most complex tool that I implement inside organizations. And it will change the way that you think about asking questions inside your organization. That's my commitment. The first question we want to understand is what? It's what is the problem that we're looking to solve? So we've got what at the top. The next set of questions we want to understand are who has the problem? Who's impacted by the problem? Who cares about the people who have or are impacted by the problem? When we go into that who piece, we can understand perspective. Remember, there's 3 perspectives: has, impacted, cares. The people who care typically have money. The people who have impacted will have influence. The people who have are struggling with it right now and don't know how to get out. So who? The next piece that we want to know is why. This gets into what Renee was talking about a little bit earlier around root cause analysis. Why does the problem persist? Do your 5 whys. Go deep. Try to figure out what is happening. Channel that inner 2-year-old. Why does it persist? And the piece that we tend to forget, why is it important to solve? What is the business impact of solving that problem? Once we know those, got a little bit of Mary Poppins thing going here, but we've got this Mary Poppins approach to problem solving. I know my top 3 things. I've now earned the right, using some Brynne language, earned the right to get into how. How are they solving it today? How might we solve it in the future? Current state versus desired state. So we have how, then we can move into when does it need to happen by? And then we move into short-term, medium-term, long-term planning, 30, 60, 90 type planning. And that will fill out the hexagon. And I'll go back there to do it just because my microphone's I don't have my lav mic on. If you want to go deep into this, this is a quick way for you to go through and say, do I really understand things from the perspective of the customer? Or have I missed certain questions and now this shape can't hold water? So again, we go how, when, and then really what's next? 30, 60, 90. What's going to happen? 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 9 weeks, 3 years, 6 years, whatever it is, short-term, medium-term, long-term. So we get a basic plan. And if any of those lines can't be filled out, we've got risk. That shape can't hold water. And it draws attention to what other questions we can be asking. And this feels comfortable. And one of the reasons I have a whiteboard is I can go through this with people in real time and put things up on a board together and build together. Then it feels not like something that's being done to you. It feels like something that's being done for you. It's an act of service. And Anthony Iannarino says this out loud. Sales is not something that is done to somebody. It's done for somebody. Like, this is powerful.
You can't see, we're all nodding our heads. So if you're listening and not watching, every single one of us was just nodding our heads. Keep going.
And thanks, Liz. This is a powerful way to go through questions and gather information in a way where you start to feel like you're building together with your customer. The dirty little secret behind that started as an account plan framework that was ultimately used as a qualification framework when I had to scale qualification and account planning across a large group of people. I've reshaped it into a problem-solving framework because some people don't like salespeople, and there are a lot of people who are struggling with solving problems. So this is a good way to do it. But that's a simple way to kind of work your way around the questions. The only one that's missing there, if you ever did any journalism, is where. We don't get into the where piece, and that could be another one that you add in there. But typically, at least in the kind of stuff that I was doing, it's not where wasn't a critical piece. But hopefully that was helpful.
There you go.
Well, look, I think one of the things you have to look at is if you're selling anything that's moderately complex, you're not going to have a one-call close. It's going to be multiple conversations that you're going to have. Some of these things that may feel like a question filing squad that you're having to face, maybe you have to put those things off to the next conversation. You need to also figure out the person you're talking with might not be the best person to answer every one of those questions for you to get to your root cause. So you need to be able to be willing and open to expanding the people that you're talking to within that organization. And you should want to do that anyway, but that way you're going to get those perspectives. You're going to get those questions answered. You just don't have to do it all at one time. There's things you need to know. There's things that you need to know eventually, and you need to be able to figure out where you're at.
I think a lot of times, oh, sorry, Renee, just a quick one. A lot of times when people are early in their decision-making process, or they're finding a solution or understanding that they have a problem process, giving them space to talk is really powerful. So it's not about asking super specific questions and getting super specific answers. It's about helping them figure out what the problem is. So depending upon where you are in their sales, in their buying process, the way you ask questions and who you ask questions to, what questions you ask, that all really matters. And I know, like, in the early part of the sales process, one of my favorite questions is, like, what's working and what isn't? And I'm not assuming they have a problem and everything is wrong, but usually it's not 100% wrong. There are things that work and there are things that don't work. And giving them the ability to talk about, this is what's going really well. This is what's not going really well. I don't want to mess this up, but I want to fix this. It frees them up to talk. And I think that's one of, depending again, where we are, there's open-ended questions, there's closed-ended questions, there's confirmation questions, there's all these different kinds of questions. Depending upon where you are in the process, the kinds of questions that you ask matter. And early on, open-ended questions are powerful. Sometimes later on, closed-ended questions are powerful. So just sort of thinking about where are you, where are they, what will help them make a decision. And then Renee, I cut you off again. So
No, I was 100% agreeing that it's a process. And that's why I say coming in hot is going to put someone on defense and it feel intrusive, right? It's not that you are not trying to get the information. It's about how you're going about it, right? So BANT is still good for you to get in sales. It is not, as Brynne pointed out, good for you to ask. There are lots of ways to get information. And to your point, Liz, if we get into a real conversation, you aren't going to have to ask many of the questions because you're guiding me down a path where I want to voluntarily share information with you, right? That's a totally different, and honestly, it helps you save a lot of your negotiating power for later, right? Because you haven't asked for so much from me up front that I've given you everything that you're already going to get, right? If you have let me guide you down somewhat, then you can ask for more later. And that's where often you need the ask, right? So I agree 100% in having all of those fields, if you will, that you need filled in, but kind of waiting to see what I offer before you come in hot helps save some of that power differential, if you will, for when you need it.
You have to earn the right to get those answers.
And you'll get a lot of them, right? Like if you let me say what I want to say, you'll probably get more than if you drill me with questions, right? So saving the questions for where I've dropped off and haven't filled in the gaps gets you so much more. I also will just share, because we didn't address it earlier on, but one of the things that I see, and we talked about sales enablement materials in the last one about overcoming objections, I think in asking questions and understanding and getting in the right frame for the conversations to try and get people to open up, I see a lot of really underdeveloped target personas, and a really good target persona canvas should help you open up a lot of these kinds of things. It helps you understand where someone is a lot better. You can, if you have a, I'm trying not to use the word should, Brynne, because I really do try to avoid it. But the document should be able to help with this, right? If the document is fully complete, then you should be able to tell like where your target persona really falls on growth focus versus risk. What kinds of things look like high value to them? What are some top high value things for them? You should be able to understand a little bit more about how their day, what it looks like. Are they in meetings all day long? Are they pressed for time? Are they, trying to solve problems most of the day? Like you can get a lot of that framework kind of built out for you so that you can have a real conversation. And I see a lot of underdeveloped target personas that are mostly company and person demographics and not like what is going on and what is that person trying to do and how are they thinking and what is their role like and what are the things that come up in their world, all of that sort of thing. And when you have that really fleshed out, it makes it a lot easier for someone to enter into a real conversation.
Chris, you got anything for us?
I think I'm good for the moment. I mean, I think that, it's always going to come down to being curious, right? Do you actually care? Do you want to understand the answer? And after it, to be honest, are you willing at that point to qualify somebody out if they don't fit what you can do or refer them to somebody else that can, right? But don't try to shoehorn your solution to fit what you think a need is and then end up failing. So,
and I want to say this really clearly, and I think everybody needs to listen carefully. And that is, I can coach your sales team on a lot of things. I can teach them a lot of skills. I can coach them around asking questions. I cannot teach them to be curious, and I cannot teach them to care. And if they were neither curious nor care, they probably shouldn't be on your team, right? So we want salespeople who are those things, who care and want to help our customers solve problems, want to understand what's going on. So, I think it's super important. I think that caring thing, that curiosity thing is super important. And when we care about our customers, we don't vamp them. When we care about our customers, we don't, we don't bombard them with questions and interrogate them. We have conversations with them that help them make the decisions. So I'm going to wrap up this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. Thanks for joining us. In our next episode, we're going to be talking about reading buyer signals and closing deals. So thanks for joining us. Okay. And Brynne, I know you need to leave as part of this, so I'll let you lead off, and then I think this one maybe won't quite as long as some of the others, but here we go. Brynne, I can't hear you. Brynne, you're on mute.
So just FYI, in 8 minutes, I will be hanging out with my 2-year-old granddaughter and my 4-year-old granddaughter. So I'm going to hear why for the rest of the night.
We're going to jump into our final episode of this month's Sales SOS podcast.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. A huge thank you to our experts for throwing us a lifeline with their insights. We hope that episode has equipped you to navigate sales leadership with confidence. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to your Sales SOS podcast on your favorite platform. If you have questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to explore, join us live on LinkedIn every second Friday, or share your questions on LinkedIn or YouTube. Until next time, keep sailing toward your sales goal.